Manufacturing Innovations, and I'm here with Sam Alba and Mr. Ricardo Rodriguez. Ricardo,
Senor,
thank you for being with us.
thank you very much for the invitation. This is
Crazy
great.
busy schedule.
Oh, well, we all are, so thank you.
We're
This
having
is great.
fun. But no, thank you for being here with us, Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Mr.
how are you
Rodriguez.
now?
It's still morning time for you. It's 11 o'clock. After happy hours, we start calling each other different
Yeah,
things.
seriously.
So, Ricardo, I don't know if you wanted to say something quick about yourself. What do you do? Where do you work?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Well, first of all, those jackets are great. I want them. You might be living here without a
You
jacket.
can swap.
Why
You
tell
can
you that?
swap because I like that one.
I think you're my size. It might work out.
So, my name is Ricardo Rodriguez. I am a real estate agent in Boston with Coldwell Banker. I've been in business now for 16 years, a little bit over 16 years. And it's primarily a downtown Boston business, and then within that, with a niche on new construction. And so that in a nutshell kind of like tells you everything that,
You do just a little bit of
Yeah,
business,
you're
right?
so modest.
Yeah, just a little.
You're so
you know,
modest.
Trying to stay busy, that's all it is.
You kind of dominate this territory here.
Well, that's the idea. It's
humbleness.
slowly. I don't know about dominating, but slowly we'll get there.
I sell a
hopefully.
couple of condos and units. So you do a little bit out here,
Yes, just a little bit.
and you said 16 years of a couple successful years in between those 16, right?
Yeah, you know how it is. It takes a while to get your business going, but once it starts rolling, you take advantage of everything.
We'll stop the humbleness. You're a very respectable real estate agent. You are very diverse. You've done a phenomenal job throughout your career.
Well, thank you.
And that's what we're saying here today, because we want to get your insight in terms of what's going on. And there's so much changes going on in our communities, in our country, and throughout the world.
Yeah.
Let's get down to what's going on and how's it affecting the real estate market.
Yes.
Here in your local market here in Boston.
Yeah. So I think that in terms of what we have seen, while you see some of the trends that you're seeing nationally, or we did see those trends originally of people kind of like moving outside of this inner city kind of like neighborhoods into more suburban or ex-urban neighborhoods. That, in my experience here in Boston, kind of like it stopped very quickly, and what we saw were people looking for more space within the city, looking maybe for second homes, which is very different than just leaving the city. Or some people just decided to stay put and see what was going on. And so as far as our client base, we have a very, very active client base in terms of buyers and our own sellers, and we just see people remaining within the city and then just, kind of like feeding from available inventory within the city. Yeah.
And this was a very common trend in the U.S. in a lot of our major cities.
Yes.
And of course, Boston got affected.
Yeah,
as well.
I think what happens is that when you have a situation like what happened in New York, like New York is a very specific example, right? And I think it's a very extreme example. Now, if you go to New York right now, particularly in the luxury market segment, it's just absolutely insane. Like things are just, selling. Buildings like Central, Park Tower, where units start at $6 million. Those units are literally just moving like a very much rapid pace than we will expect it to be. But I think that very early on, New York kind of like informed the narrative of what's happening in cities. And I think that the narrative did not take into consideration that all the real estate is local. And so what was happening in New York is not what was happening in Boston, and it's not what was happening in Providence. It's not what was happening in other places, but all cities got kind of like blanketed into all of this. Everybody's living in cities, and that was not the case. Certainly not in Boston. People were not living. The people who left the city, in my opinion, are the people who were going to live no matter what, and it had to do primarily with kids. We see this cycle here in which we get these young couples, and we know that within 5 years they're going to call us because they're going to sell their place and moving to something larger, or moving outside of the city because they need the yard and whatever it is that they need because of the kids. And so what we saw was just the COVID situation just expediting that process for people. They left earlier and they left faster. But outside from that, we really did not see kind of like that reported fleeing of people like crazy outside of the
and one of the funny issues is that you've had people that have bought outside the city, and what's happening now, they want to come back.
Yes, I was talking to you about it. Now we're getting the calls from people that said this is great, this is a great community, but it's really not for me, and I miss the city. And what is in there? Yes, exactly. I do think that understandably, very early on during the COVID situation, we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, none of us knew what was going to happen. And I think right now, with the rollout of the vaccine and all of this, you know, advancements, and I think in cities like Boston, certainly that geopolitical thing with the new president and all this stuff has changed kind of like the perception. And in cities like Boston, that has made people a little bit more comfortable back into being in city neighborhoods. Yeah. And so we're seeing people kind of like coming back in this direction after a year.
It's safe to say that people jumped the gun. They got scared, and you know, to their defense, it was a huge unknown. But we've seen that they jumped the gun, left the city, and quickly are coming back.
Yes, and I think that for some people it's great that they are there. I think that we have some clients that are absolutely happy where they are. And they were like, oh my God, we should have done it earlier, because if you have 2 or 3 kids running around in an apartment like this, it's going to drive you absolutely insane. And so of course you need the space, right? And so they're very happy that they did move. But there are some people that didn't need to move. They moved because of kind of like the panic that it was fed, and then and now they are trying to find ways of coming back. Which I think is really interesting. And I think it's the value of the city, right? Boston is an amazing city, as we know. Same thing with, you know, cities like Providence are great, you know, solid cities. And so people are happy there. You know, people have good, you know, good lifestyle.
The reason why people always live in the city is just the convenience.
Yes.
They work here, it's easy commute.
Yes, exactly.
Entertainment, the lifestyle.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So they missed it quickly.
Yes.
I think we all missed what we had 2 years ago, a year and a half ago.
Oh,
so
yes.
Ready,
oh, yeah, for sure.
To come back
I think we are ready. We're ready to go there.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I think one of the biggest questions that I know Sam and I get a lot with either people that are buying or selling is, we'll just wait till the market crashes, right? The market's going to crash soon.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest indicators is kind of if the luxury market stops, then you're like, all right, if the wealthy aren't buying, then something's going to happen. But you're seeing quite the opposite. Everything's booming.
So I think we've had this conversation before. To me, a good, again, I've been this for 16 years, so I've seen all sorts of cycles, and sometimes you start to get red flags when you see kind of like stopping of activity on the higher price points, because then that kind of like demonstrates confidence on the market or not, right? And so what we are seeing right now is more of a spottiness, where you have the ultra luxury, and particularly the ultra luxury and the single family home kind of like segment. It's extremely active within the city. The same thing with more kind of like boutique settings, so smaller buildings on the higher end of the price points. Those units are tending to move much faster than maybe some other price points within the luxury market segment. And so for us right now, where we are having some of the challenges with absorption is in what we will call kind of like our mid-luxury, which is that 3 to around 5, 6. And it makes sense because those are the same price points that people found places in the suburbs. That's where you go and you find your nice house in the suburbs between that 3 and 5 million, let's say. And so that buyer pool, it's now there, and so that buyer pool isn't necessarily here right now. And so we are seeing a little bit of an absorption issue there. But the ultra luxury is moving quite nicely, and as well as the entry level. All of our entry level has moved really nicely throughout the entire period, you know. Yeah.
So lack of inventory in the single family sector because of the wave that went. Do you think there's going to be a surplus, or there's still going to be a shortage? Are they still keeping their single family homes and coming back?
So, you know, Boston, like, of course, I'm speaking about Boston in particular, right? That's what I know. And so Boston is primarily a condo market. The great thing about Boston, because the majority of the city is a historical, you know, it's within historical settings. We don't have the kind of like density that you see in terms of production of new construction homes in cities, let's say like Miami or like New York, just to name a couple. And so we are really restricted on the production of new construction, even at the condo level. And then that means that when you're looking at the single family kind of like a property type, you even have a much shorter level of inventory. And so, for example, last year, when you compare 2019 to 2020, single family homes in Boston overall, in terms of price, they grew by around, I think it was like somewhere around 6 or 7% in terms of price. They actually went up on price. In the luxury market segment, which in the city starts around $2 million plus, that single family home in terms of price grew by somewhere around 32% in terms of price, because there was the demand for the single family home.
This was in what time frame?
This is when you compare 19 to 20, this is in 1 year, right? When you compare year over year, you saw that difference because of the high demand of single family homes. So the trend really for us was more that people were looking for single family homes, or they were looking for smaller, more boutique settings for condos. So a place like this building that is 9 units is kind of like one of those much more ideal settings for buyers, and let's say than a larger structure with a couple hundred units where you have more of an interaction. But again, that is all changing as the vaccinations are rolling out and as people are feeling more comfortable with each other again.
Yeah, we were having that issue actually in Providence as far as like the commercial industry. First floor units were going like this.
Yeah.
Because people didn't want to use elevators and be with
Yeah,
a bunch
yeah,
of people to
yeah,
go
yeah.
to a higher unit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was kind of like the big concern. So
Yeah.
hopefully with the vaccination and things like that.
Yeah, and that changes. I don't know if you remember, right after 9/11, that nobody wanted to be in a penthouse,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then a few years later,
Yeah, sure.
we moved on. A few years later, then it was a penthouse, and then right now nobody wants to be in large buildings. But guess what? Those large, tall buildings are the ones that give you the views that everybody wants. All those things, and it's just a matter of us getting through this, and people feel more comfortable, and and I think that will come back.
I think we know that it's all going to come back. We're all
Yeah.
going to go back to normal. And I do agree with the topic that we have going on. I do believe that it's one of the indicators of where the market is going, and because it's our job to be market specialists and know the near future of the real estate market. I do agree. The luxury market is one of those indicators. If they're doing strong, I expect the rest of the housing market to do as well. Another sector that you dabble a lot of work in is newer developments.
Yes.
A lot of these condos are new developments.
Yes.
And I also do believe, as long as there's being developments taking place, that's an indicator of a strong market locally.
Yeah, people are willing to invest and actually develop a building. It's for a reason.
And I'm telling you, from every single project that we had, a year ago, pre-lockdown, none of those projects came off. They're all happening right now. As a matter of fact, we're starting to launch them right now. We were just slightly delayed because of it. We're delayed by 6 months, but some of the stuff that we were supposed to launch in the fall is just coming out online right now. So we did not lose any of those projects. None of our clients walked out of any of those projects. And if anything, we picked up more projects in the past 2 months, I think, that we picked up last year, all combined, in terms of a total number of units, which is great. Which is great.
And I think it's the thought of people, right? They're waiting for a new year, fresh start. They just kind of want to leave the last year behind and move forward and do things.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's kind of the mentality that we just want to keep going and move forward and forget about last year and just.
Yeah, we certainly, in areas like this, there is a shortage of housing. There is, I think that the biggest issue that we need to deal with and reckon with in the city is affordability, and I think that's a completely different conversation, right? Because there are a lot of people out there that are in certain, we are talking right now about market, market rate kind of like segments, but there is a high percentage of the population that isn't necessarily in this specific market segments that we are talking about, but we still need to produce that housing, and so I think that what is going to be interesting, I've been saying for a while that this conversation about who left the city is not the most interesting. Who left the city? Well, they left. Good for them, right? Yeah. The question is who stayed in the city and who's coming back. That's what is interesting, because that's going to redefine what the cities are all about. And so that's my interest. When I have this conversation, what do you think of this? I'm like, I really, it doesn't matter anymore. That was a year ago. Interesting is who's here, who stayed, who stayed, and what are we going to do about the people who stay, right? This thing has certainly opened the lid on a lot of kind of like inequalities at all aspects, right? From healthcare to housing, all this stuff. What are we going to do about those things? Because we need to take care of the people that are in the city, because that's part of the fabric of the city.
I think this is awesome. Great conversation. Ricardo, appreciate you being here.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You
now
said
again,
you're gonna buy us lunch, right?
Yes, I did that. Well, if you leave those jackets right there, we'll go to lunch.
I'll throw this thing right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.